and welcome to the Actual Tech Media MegaCast. My name is Jess, and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information to cover with you. Let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. Now, if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Also, keep in mind that if you have any tech issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you. So throughout today's MegaCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all of your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. And if we do not get to your question during the webinar, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us today will be following up with you after we wrap. All right, next up on our tour, there are going to be lots of cool aha moments in the MegaCast today, and if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's MegaCast will automatically get added to your post. And our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the Handouts tab for some resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection of solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. And if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes we will be giving away throughout the MegaCast today. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. You do need to be in attendance here live at the webinar in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all winners after we wrap the MegaCast today. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, hey, if you're not sure what those are, no problem. You can find the full T's and C's in that Handouts tab. Again, just click into the Handouts section, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find the full T's and C's waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember here today is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. In today's MegaCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all the questions asked after the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about winning, and we will get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the MegaCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going. So let's connect on social. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content right away after we wrap, you want to jump right in, make sure that you subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and to grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you're going to find a link to do that right there in that Handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected after we wrap today. Now, both you and your coworker, your friend, could win a prize, and we actually hold those drawings every month. So be sure you refer somebody awesome before you head out today. It could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your Handouts tab and fill out the application. Then the Actual Tech crew will match you with some vendors that we think you should be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you can choose to join in, like surveys or test running new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you will learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker in your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, how to prevent and recover. The site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. So go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books are going to work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and they are completely free, super easy. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in the handouts tab as well. Okay, well, we've covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get rolling. All right, well, I hope that you are all ready and pumped up, because today we are talking about the modern security portfolio, the tool set organizations need now. And it's that last bit that really stands out, hey, the now of it all, because we all know that the pace of change is happening rapidly. Threats are evolving, and so are the tools that we use to combat those bad actors. AI and ML are changing the game for the good guys and the bad guys alike. And there is just no end, and there is no slowing down in this particular race, which, I get it, it's a little bit scary, right? But it's also a little bit exciting, because if we are armed with the right tools, then we can run that race. And that's what we're here to talk about today: how to build up your team's tool chest and create that robust security portfolio that puts your organization ahead. This is going to be a great conversation with some incredible experts here with us from industry leading teams, Veeam and Rubrik. I can't wait to get started. So we are going to zip through our housekeeping and get this show on the road. Now, you guys heard most of this I saw one of our wonderful community members here with us today saying Jess is back in her little brick room. Yes, in the little brick room, you heard me go over all of the housekeeping this morning. So hopefully there's no questions there, but you know how to reach us if you do have any questions in that little window. Again, my name is Jess Steinbach. I'm a moderator here at ATM. Now, my fellow moderators, Scott Becker, Keith Ward, Mackenzie Pudici, all here with us on live chat. And Keith Ward is going to join us in just a moment to chat with our keynote speaker. They're waiting in the wings and excited to chat with you today. Speaking of excitement, dun, 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 we have today on the MegaCast one of 3 Microsoft Surface Pro 9s that could be going home, with some lucky winners that are out there live and present at the MegaCast. Plus, we have that $300 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away every 30 minutes. So stay tuned for those. And as I mentioned, again, in the little brick box this morning in the housekeeping chat, you can find the full terms and conditions linked in that handouts tab. So if you have any questions about the terms and conditions for prize winners, head on over to the handouts tab and you can find them all there today. All right, well, we are going to move things along in our session, because as you can see, we have a very exciting keynote speaker here with us. And we've got Keith Ward waiting in the wings to chat with Larry Seltzer, an IT journalist, security writer, security researcher, most of all around fascinating human. Larry and Keith, I'm going to hand things on over to you. Keith, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Jess. And hi, everyone. It is great to be here today. I am thrilled to be joined by Larry Seltzer to talk about the crucial topic of having the right tools in your toolbox. Now, Larry is a journalist, author, and security expert who also holds a CISSP certification, demonstrating his expertise in keeping the bad guys at bay. Larry, it is great to have you here today.
Thanks, Keith. It's great to be here.
Why don't we dive right in? So the first question on tap is, what special security challenges face modern apps?
Okay. When I think of modern apps, I think of apps that are running hybrid in many senses of the word. Some are running on your endpoint. Some of the app is in one or more clouds. The platforms they're running on are themselves running many different kinds of system software by countless authors. Some of their systems and data are encrypted well, some badly, some not at all. In fact, there are actually hundreds of different programs that you're running here and there because you run this modern app, and they're written to different security standards. So there's always been a certain amount of trust required in computing. But we've gone to a whole new level with these modern apps. Fundamentally, they operate in a manner that requires significant levels of trust, not just in the vendor who wrote your software, but in their suppliers, theirs, all the other vendors involved, the whole ecosystem they inhabit. And we place our trust in these ecosystem components, not because we have thoroughly vetted them, but because it's generally impractical to do otherwise. So you can't really mitigate all your risks, but you can maybe assess them and understand that the power of modern apps comes with risks that are difficult, maybe impossible to define precisely. So there are absolutely people working on this problem. And the solutions they propose are cool and worthwhile, but it's going to be a long time before they're practical and widespread solutions to all this risk. Mostly this comes in the form of SBOMs, software bills of materials, which you can think of as a bill of lading for software you acquire. It defines all of the inputs, their precise versions, their dates, some other useful information like license terms. And if those inputs are also include SBOMs, you should be able to audit all inputs, which has a lot of management benefit for the software complexity morass in which we find ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. So, with what you described, Larry, as the very complex modern environment, modern computing environment, um, there still comes the need to, on the one hand, be safe. On the other hand, you got to get work done. You can't have every laptop, for instance, so locked down that it's impossible, to do much because you're blocked here and there and everywhere. So how does an organization find that balance today?
Well, this is really good and a really hard question, and it's the one that execs really need to think about all the time. Security needs to be integrated everywhere. Everyone needs some level of security training appropriate to their work, but very few people are hired to do security as their work. So because of this, the main way companies can maximize security while keeping it out of the way of getting work done is to automate it. And this has been a major theme, maybe the most important theme of security in the last few years. There's so much security to be done. The only way to get it done is to automate it. I often come back in some to a quote I saw many years ago by an Air Force general. This was back in the 50s. I think he was in some way in charge of security in Washington, D.C. And he was talking to a bunch of local officials, and he said, and I've actually memorized this. Simply put, it is impossible to have. It is simply put, it is possible to have convenience if you want to tolerate insecurity. But if you want security, you must be prepared for inconvenience. And this has been a truism, not just of the physical security he was referring to, keeping the wrong people out of secure buildings, secure areas within buildings, making sure secure information isn't compromised. But it extended to IT security as well, and you see a lot of that. That like the more secure things become, the less convenient they become to use. It's kind of a law of human nature. If you have to keep logging in, you need to go through the VPN. It's going to get in your way of work. I've seen this happen, especially in more secure industries like finance. But as I just said, there's too much security that needs to get done now, and the only way to get it done is to automate it. So think of it as the difference between going through airport security as just the ordinary guy on the street and going through it with Clear. And Clear, if you somehow don't know, is this service that does an extensive background check on you. I don't know how actually extensive it is, but that's the theory behind it. And when you go through the Clear line at the airport or some other places like stadiums, it does a facial recognition on you and confirms that you are who Clear thinks you are, and you keep on just walking through. The background check and the authentication that Clear does is the automation in this context. And it's an example of how security automation can actually break the truism of the security convenience trade-off that the general described.
Okay, that's a really good analogy. So, um, it kind of related is a lot of folks when they're buying security tools and things like that. some admins, they will look here and, oh, this looks interesting. They'll go to a conference, right? Oh, that looks interesting, and I'll buy that. And they kind of build their toolbox that way, kind of piecemeal, you might call it. Is there a danger in that sort of an approach to upgrading, up leveling your security apparatus?
Yeah, it can be dangerous. It's also inevitable to a certain degree, and the market pushes it to a certain degree. It's definitely hard to know where to single source these things. Um, Everyone needs some level of outside consulting on security, and you should generally defer to their judgment on what tools to use. Unless you're a really large and technically savvy business, you should concentrate that outside consulting in as few vendors as you can so that there's less of a chance of conflict within your security strategy. And your experts are going to keep the tool set as simple as possible, if only for their own purposes. And many of the larger ones, they write a lot of their own tools. But these tools are themselves some of the modern apps you were asking about, and so their complexity can become a vulnerability. The security consultants are well aware of this problem. I mean, there have been some incidents in the last few years that had to do with the complexity of security provision.
Right.
There are classes of security software like IAM, identity and access management, that tend to collect new related security functions either through internal development or vendor acquisition. So adopting one of these systems, which you need to do anyway, gives you an opportunity to consolidate security tools with one vendor. And usually you can also, there are standards involved and you can integrate other tools with them. But it's an opportunity to simplify it. Whether this makes sense in a specific case or specific function depends on the specifics. And there are new security startups coming up all the time with new security approaches that are unique or at least different enough that you can only get them in a piecemeal fashion. I did some work recently for an AI security startup that identified a problem no one else had really identified before. And they created a new and really innovative approach to address it. And I know that they're working with CISOs of some very large enterprises that are willing to implement the tool, at least in experimental form, because they see the real value in it. Companies like this often end up getting bought by big vendors and integrated into their offerings. Even the largest, most sophisticated companies have vulnerabilities in their own systems, and in fact, the largest ones are some of the most weak, most vulnerable in a way because their systems are so complex. So think about recently Microsoft was exploited through a weekly secured exchange server. The vulnerability had to do with settings that were available but not enabled by default in an old version of Exchange. And so management of that infrastructure at Microsoft is undoubtedly highly automated, yet they hadn't upgraded the server or enabled the settings. So, I mean, your question was about piecemeal tool choices, and you could say the same thing about policies, which in the Exchange example were applied piecemeal rather than uniformly. There was some sort of exception made for this, for what reasons that might have seemed reasonable at the time, but which turned out to be wrong.
Absolutely. Well, Larry, this has been an eye-opening discussion. I want to thank you so much for being here today and for educating us on the topic of security tool sets and what the modern environment needs, and in a lot of cases, maybe doesn't need. And for the attendees today, you're going to get even more of this kind of great content throughout the rest of the event. So be prepared for some major learning today. Larry, thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always good to be here.
Thank you. And Jess, that is it for this keynote. Back to you now.
Well, thank you so much, Keith. And thank you to Larry for such a great conversation. So interesting. Lots of cool things to start thinking about as we roll into our conversation here today. And believe me, we have a lot of info coming our way. Before we jump in though, I do just want to point out that we've got a question up on the screen for all of you. What we're wondering is, what's your timeline like? Are you thinking a little more short term? Are you thinking a little more long term? So today we're talking about that security tool chest. And when you're considering the different tools that are on the table today, are you thinking that this is something that you need to make some urgent changes to your security portfolio, or you're thinking a little longer term, or hey, it is absolutely fine if the answer is I don't know, because we don't know what we don't know, right? And maybe you're here today because you want to assess where your security portfolio is at, and then you will be setting some timelines. So whatever the answer is, click on the screen for us there. Let us know. Again, this just helps us kind of get an idea of getting how we can get you the right information you need based on where you're at in your journey, in your research, and in your planning at your organization. Okay, while you're doing all of that, I am going to give you another extra second, and now we're going to move things along because it is time to kick off our MegaCast. And as you can see, we are definitely starting out on a great note with the Veeam team. And not only that, not only are we kicking things off with Veeam, we have the one and only Rickatron here with us, Rick Vanover, Senior Director, Product Strategy at Veeam. Rick, thank you so much for being here with us again at the MegaCast today. Always such a pleasure to hear from you. I'm going to hand things on over to you. Take it away. Rick, can you hear us? Oh, sorry, Rick. Here you go. I can hear you now. We got you. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, happy to be here again, Jess. I have some really interesting news. The keynote that we just went through, believe it or not, that is Keith Ward, who is instrumental in making the Rickatron. So very important and very awesome individual. And Jess, I can't figure out how to move the slides. It's been so long, I forget. What do I do?
Let me give you a hand, Rick. I'll bump you to the first slide, and then there's a little previous and next button down at the bottom. If you can't find it, you just shout out to me, and I'll move the slides.
Right. You're paying attention. You're doing better than me. All right. Well, thank you, friends. We're into it. So I'm going to talk about the modern security portfolio. And, there's some things you all need to know. And that's what I do here at Veeam. As just said, the Veeam team is here for you. If you haven't heard, data protection, backup, that is what we do, what we excel at. And we are happy to be here with you today. Just, can you give me a click? It's not letting me do it. I don't know why. But I do want to start with the problem here. So we are radically focused on being resilient against ransomware. And, the thought is in the market, I have a challenge that it can be easier, that backup is easy, recovery is hard, or dare I say, backup for show, recover for dough. The reality is that 45% of organizations that go through a cyber incident, 45% of their data was impacted. But of those people who went through an incident, 93%, 93, had the threat actor go after their backups. They know this is how you get out of the problem. So the reality is, the thought is that this is the most important way out of the problem. And so what we do here at Veeam is we first of all want to educate the market. As the largest backup provider in the world with nearly 500,000 enterprise and customers of all types around the world, we are radically focused on keeping your data safe from the threats, knowing, very, very well that the threat actors are going after your data. So let's take a look. Sorry, Jess, one more click. I still can't do it. Thank you. Let's look at the timeline, right? So I throw Jess a curveball. She's working here today. So the attacks are a timeline where, the threat actor is going to observe, and I'm sorry, just keep clicking until I tell you to stop. And the threats are going to sneak in, and they're going to set up a base of operations, and don't click anymore, Jess. But basically the thought here is that the threat actors are going to go in. They're going to know just as much, dare I say, if not more, about your environment than you will and do. That is scary, friends. They will take a year or so to look at your environment. They know where your backups are. They know the critical apps. They know what will bring damage to your reputation and such. Now, ideally, right, before the ransomware payload is deployed, a lot of times it's towards the right when they really deploy some malware and things that the rest of our EDMs can detect, right? Our SIM and SOAR platforms, the EDRs. Sorry, I listen to EDM, but I keep data safe with EDRs, and some of you will get that joke. But basically, the thought here is that when the payload is deployed, right, that's when it really gets ugly. And I know, just as well as you know, that keeping things up to date across the estate is really a challenge. But the reality is these threats are real. This is just what we see in the market. And the challenge is really just getting out of that problem as easily as you can. And what I can tell you, again, from our experience in the market, is that there is no scripted way out of a ransomware incident or a cybersecurity incident. And what I mean by that is you can have a plan A, but I recommend you have a plan B, plan C, and then maybe also think about some other plans. The good news is, Jess, next slide, is that the Veeam Data Platform is here to help you. We have a proverbial truckload of capabilities now that I want to walk you through, but also make you think about some things. And right here, the Veeam Data Platform. Now, a lot of people know Veeam for different reasons. Maybe you came to find us for virtual machine backups, for example. The reality is we still rock that. And that's a whole different discussion nowadays because some people are wanting to move to a different platform. Yeah, that's a real thing. And the good news is Veeam supports 5 hypervisors, 5 physical agent platforms, 3 hyperscale public clouds, several enterprise apps, 2 software as a service offerings, and fancy stuff, cloud native apps, Kubernetes. The reality is people come to us for backup, but they are really enjoying so much more from us today. So if we look at those green boxes, monitoring and analytics, recovery orchestration, backup and recovery, the reality is, yes, people come to us for backup, but those other capabilities truly are a difference maker. And we enjoy giving that to customers now because they come to us from backup, but we can do so much more. And I'll just give you a hint. The recovery orchestration, that one's cool. That's a real problem solver, especially when you want to say, move all of your on-premises image-based backups to Azure and orchestrate the recovery to a new platform. That's pretty cool. Did you know Veeam could do that? Those types of things. Anyways, I could talk about that all day long. Veeam is much more than backups today, but let's go into security. And Jess, thank you. Ahead of my game. I love it. So when I say VDP, I'm referring to the Veeam Data Platform. So a lot of people know about Veeam Backup and Replication. That is a product of the Veeam Data Platform. But we have 3 new things that I remember there was a breakfast cereal here in the US that said, try it again for the first time. I feel like that's Veeam today. And the reality is these security capabilities that are in market today, right now, for you, are awesome. And the thought is that you can have these early threat detection, proactive threat hunting, and integration with your other tools, aka the second opinion. Now, I'm going to start with the first one really swiftly. The malware detection engine. I will tell you this. Veeam is the only backup provider in the world offering something that as the data moves across the wire during the backup, we're actually providing an additional layer of detection. Now, friends, that's borderline rocket science. They put the buzzword AI, it's AI powered, so it's really cool. So how do we do that? Well, the reality is we've seen a few things. And the reality is all those different customers that have been through scenarios and different threat actors that we've seen, we kind of know what that looks like on disk. We know that, yesterday there's a lot more data here and today there's not. Or this data used to be readable and now it's not. Or, wow, why is everything named .locku? That doesn't make any sense. All these different things. We have this really advanced engine that I think is awesome. So if you haven't seen Veeam or really thought about this type of stuff, that is a significant difference maker. Also, working with all the other tools in the toolbox, ServiceNow integration, security incident and event management integration. That's a big deal. We just launched a Splunk app. Are you Splunking? Well, you can Splunk with Veeam too. Check that out. And then also the Veeam Incident API. This one's really cool. So if Veeam detects malware, we will let your other tools know about it. Likewise, if you have your other tools detect malware, it'll let Veeam know about it and start doing an additional backup. That's pretty smart if you ask me. Let's go to the next slide, Jess. And then when we also look at these types of things, that first category is just letting you know that something may be amiss, right? Now, if I had to explain this to my mom, sometimes I do. She wonders what I do for a living. She knows that I go places and I talk about stuff and I use computers. That's good enough. But the reality is sometimes what I just explained to you is a really fancy, awesome smoke detector. But what is Veeam in the business of doing? It's responding and recovering, okay? So everything I just spoke about is really advanced detection. But remember what I said, backup for show, recover for dough. So let's get you out of that problem. One of the cool things I really like here is that Veeam has this Yara content analysis. Now, this is rather advanced. If you don't know what Yara is, it's kind of a joke in technology. They say yet another ridiculous acronym. But what it actually is a way to analyze the backup data for something you are looking for. Now, it can be as simple as, hey, our credit card numbers in plain text on disk in the systems I've backed up. That's actually an interesting question. You can do that with Yara. But it also could be, hey, my security team detected traces of XYZ ransomware. Do I have it in my backups? That's also another use case, right? Being able to answer those questions is really, really powerful. And that's something that Veeam has on the truck today. In the middle column, the malware-free recovery, that's actually a great idea. If we do have an incident, I want to be able to get out of it clean. This is something we've had, I want to say, since 2018 or 19. I've been at Veeam. This is my 14th year. I feel bad. I can't remember this. I mean, I'm not like an ultimate Wikipedia, but I do my best, friends. I truly do, including on Wednesdays. And then in the third column, recovering with precision. Our continuous data protection analyzer can even visualize when things blip, right? That might be the first hit if you think about some of those threat actor behaviors, getting out of the problem many ways, including ways you didn't plan about, and getting these different data points. That is really awesome. All right, Jess, one more slide here. Let's check this one out. Now, when you have your data under management by Veeam, I want to keep it as safe as possible. The first one I want to draw your attention to, and this, if you're using Veeam, great. If you're not, think about this when you have your own data protection strategy. 4 eyes administrative protection. Now, I'm going to crack a joke here, all right? That means pirates aren't supported, right? We need all 4 eyes. So 4 eyes administrative authorization, joke over, means that if you have data that is going to be subject to something destructive like a delete or removing it from the server, it's going to require approval from another human being, 4 eyes. Okay, technically, if you are vision impaired, like a pirate, you are able to use it, but it requires 2 different users to authorize it. So the thought here is that 4 eyes authorization is a really strong way to protect your data under management by Veeam. And I will tell you, we're actually scheming some really powerful additional ways to use this. We're even contemplating some perceived normal things. But again, if you're using Veeam day to day and you have data that's ultra sensitive and something you really, really care about, we want to put as much control over it as possible. So 4 eyes authorization. Shout out to some of the Veeam partners in the world. I like the Pure Storage, Safe Mode, Snapshots. Those are a 4 eyes authorization model. Exagrid has that retention time lock capability. That one requires 4 eyes authorization. And there are a bunch of Veeam service providers offering Cloud Connect with insider protection, which again requires 2 humans to authorize that data being accessed. Good stuff. In the middle, security and compliance analyzer. Are you one of those people that want to win, want to have the best, whatever? This is the tool for you. The security and compliance analyzer puts a score, puts a number on your environment. You know, you ever see those things, rate my rig, rate my setup? Well, security and compliance analyzer will rate your Veeam based on how you've implemented it. Now, this is really interesting. I've seen organizations deploy Veeam, or better yet, upgrade to the latest version, and they run this like, oh man, I only got a 50% score. I look at that as, hey, great foundation, but you got some things you want to work on it. And it'll, believe it or not, tell you what you need to do. So how cool is that? All right, last thing, Threat Center. This is probably my favorite part of it. It works in conjunction with the security and compliance analyzer. If you make changes to your infrastructure that improve your overall, report on your compliance and analyzer, that impacts your threat center score. And it can even illuminate the map, like wow, I got a green dot here, that type of thing. So all those types of things are fun in the sun when it comes to knowing what's going on with your data. All right, let me go to the next slide here. Thank you, Jess. You're in my head. So if I was to take a look at scanning, all right, which is the interactive element of ensuring that data under management by Veeam is clean, or going for a restore is clean, I have these 4 different disciplines, and they kind of walk through the timing. The inline scan is the first touch, and if you could just one more click, it's going to put a box around the right. The resources. A lot of times people ask me, what's the cost? So that inline scan that you talked about, Rick, and Veeam's the only one doing it, you say. Well, that's cool, but you know what the cost is? Well, it's 30% CPU. Now, I like to draw my little analogies. Friends, the juice is worth the squeeze. I recommend you do it because chances are CPU isn't the bottleneck you have. The Yara scan and the antivirus scans are IOPS heavy. Okay, fair shout. But again, a lot of times those are kind of like deep analytical forensics. They're not real-time things. And then file indexing. We have so many different ways of looking at this management, this data under management by Veeam. Give you a lot of confidence when you recover. All right. Next slide here. Now, this malware detection works 2 different ways. I mentioned it's all razzle-dazzle AI and fancy, but it can work on the first way right here by known file extensions, deleted files, renamed files, things that are now encrypted. We can just turn that on, file activity analysis. Important to note, we need to have image-based backup job indexing happen to make that work. So it's a global setting if you're using Veeam, but you also need to have the job do the file indexing. Now, if you're one of those people, have to be the smartest person in the room. I know there's a good crowd. One of you or more are in there. Look at the bottom, VEE.am/Butler. You can look at some of our logic. Any ransomware that you know of, I guarantee you is on there. Just search for it by name and it'll show you some of the file attributes we're looking for. And that KB, if you're using Veeam, this works offline, so off the internet. It was just updated last week. It's updated at least, let's just say 3 times a month is what I'm seeing. But those 2 KBs, especially the Butler API, you can check that out and just read. What are we looking for? How smart are you, Veeam? You check it out. You tell me. All right, next slide, Jess. Almost done here. The last part of this malware detection that I recommend you implement if you're a Veeam person is this entropy analysis. This is the smart stuff here. You can make it really extreme with this little slider magic. It does cost more CPU. But again, the juice is worth the squeeze. This is how you turn it on. If you're not sure how to do it, all you do is turn it on, exclude everything, and then start unexcluding parts of your workload. And that way you can ramp it up. All right. So that's what I think you need to know. The tool set when it comes to backups. And then on this final slide, Jess, if we have any questions, we'll take it. I know my timing's all janked up, but I do want to give people a chance to roll in some questions. And that's all I got.
We do have some questions. Rick, I have to say that was the most fun I've ever had with malfunctioning slides. That was a blast.
I love it.
What a good time. Also, you had me in stitches at the 4 eyes, and so no pirates allowed. That's
I got to keep you paying attention.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, well, we're gonna get into a few audience questions. I am just going to move over to our little wish list here before we start getting into our questions. So a reminder for everyone out there, this is again how you can let Veeam know exactly what kind of follow-up you would like. So Rick just gave us a lot of good information, but obviously there's so much more to learn and so much more to explore with Veeam. So please do click on that, a data sheet, a white paper, or maybe a case study. Maybe you want to get into some pricing details or a personal demo, whatever it is that's going to help you carry this conversation forward in your organization with your team. Click on the screen right now. While you're doing that, Rick and I are going to do some questions. Rick, are you ready?
Always.
I knew that, Rick. All right. Well, we got a couple of questions coming in around air gapping and immutability in general, and then also wondering if there's anything new coming with this kind of the new releases from Veeam. Anything you want to dig into with that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. The short answer is there's several ultra resilient options for those backups. Now, ultra resilient is a word in the dictionary. That means something that's either offline, air gapped, immutable, or requires 4 eyes authorization. The one little tease that I'll highlight is we're going to have the automated Veeam ISO, so installable ISO for the hardened repository. We're going to have an updated one of those, let's just say June or later. We're going to preview it at VeeamON. I don't yet know if it'll be super ready for the public, but going over to community.veeam.com, I'll probably have the update posted there and sticky on the top.
Perfect. I love that. I'm going to sort of take this next question from a philosophical bent. So we had someone asking a question about just the massive influx of tools and platforms and solutions that are out there, and a little bit of that security theater. And maybe people feeling, I think one of the things we see is people feeling safe because they've just sort of Frankensteined like new tool, and they, building out these insane, overwhelming, like I'm picturing like a decorative snail shell from Moana, or the crab in Moana, just shiny new objects all over it. So I'm wondering, Rick, if you could give sort of 2 points here. One is what specifically makes Veeam stand out in that sort of bright, shiny amalgamation of new tools, but also if you have any sort of best practice or advice in general for folks that are evaluating tools and which ones they actually need and how to choose the right one for their organization.
Yeah, this hits home for me. It's almost a paranoia leads to over implementation, coupled with alert fatigue. It's real.
Yeah.
So first piece of advice I'd say is that it's going to be rather easy to do this with Veeam with no lock-in. So these data formats and files that Veeam writes are very portable. You could say, hey, I like what you're doing on Linux, Veeam. I'll put my immutable backups there. But you know what? I like the cloud too. I'll put my backups there with a different immutability. So you're going to have some flexibility. Now, to the second part of your question, Jess, what is the best practice? It's hopefully somebody from Brunel, Florida is on the line. It's the 32110 rule, and that is the zip code of Brunel, Florida. Central Florida never disappoints. But here's the thing. 3 different copies of your data, 2 different media, distinctly different media, maybe disk and cloud, or disk system A, disk system B. I have nothing but evidence in the form of Veeam customer case stories of bad things happening to good storages, okay? One of those copies offsite, cloud, your other data center, etc. 1 or more copies immutable, ultra resilient, etc. And then 0 surprises with advanced scanning, recovery verification, or more. 32110 rule. So you want to go to the next level, go 32120. Have 2 different immutable copies, double play immutability. It's baseball season. I can crack that joke.
That's right. That's very seasonable. All right. We are unfortunately running pretty low on time here. I'm just going to sneak in one question because I'm curious what your answer is here, Rick, as well. What do you think is the biggest oversight that security teams and backup teams are making?
Oh, the biggest, okay, I'm going to break my rule and give you 2 answers. Number 1, they're not working together. And then that's a softball. It's kind of duh, like, I don't like that person. Okay, that type of stuff. But the other problem is when there is an incident, Jess, and this is the big surprise that nobody thinks about. A lot of times you can't go back to where you came from. Meaning, think of police tape wrapped around your data center. Well, I have my backups. Let me go recover. No, we cannot do it. The cybersecurity insurance is on the line. And law enforcement is involved. It's a crime scene. People don't think about that. Now, the good news is in the Veeam world, you can recover that data elsewhere. Okay, well, today's the day we're going to the cloud or we're going to a service provider, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of my answer there. But my broader advice is talk to the Veeam team. We've got ideas, examples, best practices. It gets specific. What do you have? What are you trying to do? Wah. But that's my quick take on that one, Jess.
Well, that is a great take. And I enjoyed you almost got a little Scottish there. It's great.
I don't know what it is. I'm up in Cleveland today. I'm not at my home base. It must be something in the coffee.
Rick, before I let you go, and I always hate having to say those words to you, but before we wrap it up, if you did have to give the advice for, someone who wants to jump in with Veeam, wants to learn a little bit more, or potentially even get started, what do you think the step number one is?
Well, actually, it sounds crazy. I would recommend going over to community.veeam.com. Every week I do a news show. I just relay what's going on with Veeam. You got to know what you're getting into, right? So watch the news show that I do. We call it the weekly recap. And you can get a sense of the community, the users. I relay critical product updates and milestones. And sometimes, Jess, I even drop out secrets. So there you go.
Hey-o, okay. Well, if it wasn't enough of an incentive to just come out and hear you chat a little bit more, who doesn't want to spend more time with the Rickatron, really?
There's plenty of people that would have had enough of me, Jess, not to be misrepresenting.
Well, Rick, we really appreciate you being here with us to kick off our MegaCast and getting a little bit of the origin story with you and Keith Ward. Love that. It's been a blast chatting with you, as it always is.
Cheers. Thank you.
All right, to everyone out there that's clicking on that wish list, please keep those clicks coming. Let Veeam know how they can follow up with you. Feel free to also keep getting those questions in. Now, I know that Rick and I did not get to all your questions today. We are going to ask Rick to hang out a little bit longer and see if we can get some of those questions answered over live chat. Great. Looks like Rick is sticking around to answer some of those questions. And if he doesn't get to you in live chat today, if you don't get that immediate follow-up, don't worry, because we will make sure that all the questions asked get sent over to the Veeam team. So you will get some answers back via email if you don't get them on live chat today. And I know these sessions just move so quickly. So we have to cruise right along because we have more to get to in the MegaCast today. Speaking of more to get to, I'm going to leave that wish list up on the screen a little bit longer. I want to remind you all to visit the handouts tab if you haven't already done that, and make sure you get the Veeam handout. Zero Trust Data Resilience, Secure Data Backup, and Recovery Architecture. This is a pragmatic approach to implementing Zero Trust. I love this title. I love this handout. It is really well laid out, lots of interesting graphics, lots of great information. And looking at it again from that pragmatic approach is so key, because some of these ideas can start to feel a little ethereal, right? We talk about them so much, they almost lose their impact. But we are talking about key action steps and ways that you can move that forward. So make sure you've got that handout. Take a look and follow up with that after we wrap up the MegaCast. Don't go anywhere just yet, but you'll want that when we wrap up today. All right, we also have a prize giveaway. We're going to be doing a $300 Amazon gift card and a Surface Pro. So I'm going to give those away to one individual each, and they do need to be here live and present at the MegaCast, and hey, just a little bit lucky as well. All right, our very first winner here of a $300 Amazon gift card is Tally Smith from Washington. Tally Smith of Washington, you have won a $300 Amazon gift card. And our very first Microsoft Surface Pro going to Wade Munschow from Wisconsin. Wade Munschow from Wisconsin, the great state of Wisconsin. All right, Wade, well, thanks very much for joining us. And to you, Tally, we will follow up with both of you after we wrap. Also, do not forget, we have that best question gift card from each one of our sessions today. So if you asked a question in our last session with Rick, and we got a lot of questions coming in, again, I know we did not even scratch the surface of them in our conversation, but you are still entered to win, even if we didn't get to you live. So keep those questions coming in, my friends. We've got more chances to win coming up, so stay tuned, but we are going to keep the good times rolling here in the MegaCast, because up next we have our very last presenter. I'm sorry to say that, but also a very wonderful presenter. We are definitely going out on a high note here with the Rubrik crew. Very excited to introduce you, or reintroduce you, to another familiar face here on the MegaCast, and that is, of course, Veer Choksi, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Rubrik. Veer, thank you so much for being here with us again at the MegaCast. I know you've got some awesome content lined up for us as always, so I will step back and hand things on over to you. Take it away, Veer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Veer Choksi. I'm with Rubrik, and I've been here for about 2 years. Now, my goal here is to explain how you can use your own data to improve your cyber defense, and also to introduce data threat analytics, which is a set of capabilities that can help you detect threats better so that you can recover from cyber incidents quickly and confidently. And this presentation is geared towards both the IT and the security audience. Now, we all know that the cyber threat landscape has become challenging over the past few years. There's many reasons for this. The attack surface has grown a lot. Users are more distributed, and we have much more complex hybrid environments than in the past. It's also easy to become a cyber criminal, especially with ransomware as a service providers. So the barrier for entry for becoming a cyber criminal is a lot lower than it used to be. And also cybercrime remains financially rewarding. Now, before getting into my main content, I want to set the stage with some research from Rubrik Zero Labs, which is our threat research unit. We commission market research, we use third-party information, and also telemetry from Rubrik customers. 99% of IT and security leaders were made aware of at least one attack in 2022. Now, it isn't always ransomware necessarily. It could be data deletion, whether by a malicious actor or an insider, or even accidental. And it could be politically motivated rather than financially motivated. But the bottom line is that cyber incidents are denial of data attacks. And when your data is down, your business is down. And on average, leaders dealt with attacks 52 times in 2022. So that's roughly once per week. Now, 93% of organizations reported malicious actors attempting to impact their data backups. Backups are often your last line of defense, and if your backups are not available and clean, the victim is much more likely to decide to pay a ransom to the cyber criminals. Now, about 73% of those efforts were at least partially successful. And so backups are something that both IT and security teams have an interest in. Now, out of over 27 million analyzed snapshots, about 21,000 of those contained anomalous activity. That's about 0.07% of the total. About 1,200 encountered an encryption event, and that's 0.004% of total. Now, notably, 100% of encryption events were previously identified as anomalous, and 100% of encryption events were tied to a lack of multi-factor authentication. Now, the number of impacted files could range from thousands to the millions. And nearly 3/4 of observed encryption events affected virtualization infrastructure. Now, traditionally, cybersecurity has focused on infrastructure security around prevention and detection in your production systems. But despite significant investments in infrastructure security and prevention tools, the risk of breaches can only be reduced. They can't be completely eliminated. Attackers are still penetrating these defenses. And so just as important as reducing the likelihood of a successful attack is reducing the impact of an attack. How quickly can business as usual be restored if an attack were to happen? And how can you, as a potential victim, make informed decisions to enable a successful recovery? Now, in spite of the security tools that are in place, there are still blind spots that can make recovery painful and drawn out. So malware might be lurking in your infrastructure. Endpoint detection and response tools can detect threats on devices, but they typically won't alert you to threats that are present on servers because they usually aren't deployed there. Second, it's difficult to accurately assess the blast radius of an attack, which could leave you in the dark on what exactly you need to recover. And third, it's not easy to determine when a threat entered your environment, and this could lead to reinfection and prolonged recovery. So all of these blind spots can increase overall cyber risk and increase downtime. So what if you could leverage your existing backup data to investigate threats and recover with greater speed and confidence? Everybody has backups already, right? So the main thrust of this presentation is that your own backup data can be a rich source of intelligence to improve your overall cyber resilience. Now, I'm sure that most folks have seen the federal government's cybersecurity framework: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And they're actually thinking of adding another phase, govern, but for now, these are the 5 phases. So let's focus in on the detect piece. Teams are asking questions like, can we determine the cause and blast radius? Can we minimize data loss? Can we determine the first point of infection? How can we easily conduct indicator of compromise or IOC sweeps without impacting production workloads? And how confident are we that an attacker is not present in our environment? Those sorts of questions can be addressed with data threat analytics. Now, data threat analytics refers to the ability to continuously monitor your data for risks and detect cyber threats. So the basic theory here is that if you're taking regular backup snapshots, you're in a good position to recruit your own data in the fight against ransomware and other cyber incidents. And that's because you're capturing the longitudinal time series history of data if you're protecting your data with Rubrik. Now, additionally, Rubrik manages metadata, including the content, users, and access privileges, which can help to shed light on your data security posture. Now, data security posture is a topic for another day. But by scanning hundreds of snapshots, Rubrik's data threat analytics engine generates signals that are fed into a highly trained machine learning model, building a historical baseline against which new data can be compared to find anomalous modifications, deletions, and encryptions. Again, we're capturing time series data from enterprise, cloud, and SaaS, feeding that data into the data threat engine, and that can result in really valuable security intelligence, shining a light on those blind spots so that you can make informed recovery decisions, and even automated remediation recommendations. So what can you do with data threat analytics? You can detect threats early by automatically identifying indicators of compromise within backups using an up-to-date feed of threat intelligence. You can determine the scope of ransomware attacks using machine learning to detect deletions, modifications, and encryptions. And you can prevent malware reinfection by analyzing the time series history of snapshots for IOCs to identify the initial point, scale, and time of infection. And because the scanning is done on backups, there's no impact to your production systems. Now let's take a look at each of these three services, starting with threat monitoring. So how this one works is that threat intelligence is fed into the Rubrik threat feed. The hashes and Yara rules themselves can come from different contributors. One of the contributors is Rubrik's own InfoSec team, so you can leverage the same intel that we're protecting Rubrik the business with. Intelligence can also come from Zero Labs, which is Rubrik's own threat research team, or it may come from third parties. Either way, we vet the threat intelligence prior to including it in the feed to ensure the quality of the intelligence is high and the threats are relevant to critical infrastructure environments. This intelligence gets downloaded at set time intervals. And when there's new intelligence available, a hunt will kick off automatically and search for threats based off the hashes and Yara rules. Now, should a match occur, you'll be notified right away via email. You can then drill down via the dashboard to see where the threat was located, what hash or Yara rule was matched, and find attributes associated with the hash or Yara for more background information to assist in potentially kicking off other threat hunts via Rubrik's threat hunting service or via third-party tools like a SIEM or an EDR. You can also quarantine the threat from within threat monitoring as well. So essentially, threat monitoring is a turnkey solution to help detect and protect your organization from threats. The intelligence gets downloaded automatically. Hunts based off of this intelligence will be automatic. And if any threats are found, you get notified about the threat, and any attributes associated with that threat will also be shared whenever possible. So it really is that simple. This is literally set it and forget it. The next service under the data threat analytics umbrella is anomaly detection. Now, anomaly detection provides a comprehensive approach to ransomware remediation. We use multi-stage machine learning to detect anomalies in your backup data. Those stages include observing file creations, deletions, and modifications, and comparing it to historical changes within that specific workload. In addition, entropy is analyzed to determine if ransomware-like encryption has occurred. And finally, if possible, we will identify the specific strain of ransomware as well. So if an attack has occurred, Rubrik automates the assessment of the blast radius to quickly understand what applications and files were impacted and when. And that eliminates the intensive manual labor that's usually required, such as bringing up a VM copy and manually comparing and scrubbing for changes. Finally, your backup file system has immutability. Since your data is never available in read-write mode, it can't be changed or overwritten. Fast and flexible recovery options can be used to revert back to the most recent clean version, whether using instant recovery, live mount, file level recovery, or orchestrated recovery. And that brings us to threat hunting. Threat hunting is a really powerful tool that lets you perform custom scans of your backups on demand for specific IOCs. You can identify the point of malware entry so that you can know what point in time to recover to avoid reinfection and minimize data loss. Threat hunting is both broad and deep. It allows you to scan multiple workloads and across time. It's also flexible. It can consume and search for threats via Yara rules, file hashes, and file patterns. These types of threat intelligence are industry standards. Thus, this allows you to leverage threat intelligence from various sources, such as internal sources, like your own InfoSec team, third-party intelligence services that could be paid or open source, from industry groups such as ISACs, and even government agencies that publish threat bulletins. And much like anomaly detection, threat hunts are done on backups, and thus there's no impact on your live production systems. Threat actors are unaware of ongoing hunts. And lastly, since Rubrik backups are immutable, you can identify IOCs that attackers have erased from production systems to cover their tracks. So in sum, threat hunting can shortcut the hunt for the point in time and the place where an adversary may have gained access to your infrastructure and help to define the clean recovery point so that you're not recovering with the malware still in place. So let's look at a typical ransomware attack and how data threat analytics fits in. Bad actors will establish initial access, followed by a lateral move, persistence, privilege escalation, recon, collecting, and staging. And finally, there is exfiltration and encryption. So anomaly detection pinpoints the impact on the target. So you can identify the blast radius so you know exactly what to recover and recover quickly. And threat monitoring and threat hunting identify when the attackers established access so that you can ensure a safe restore point. Now, threat monitoring is a passive activity, while threat hunting is more active if there are specific IOCs that you want to hunt for. Now, these are all very powerful when used in conjunction and help you to make sure that your recovery is as fast and safe as possible. So again, to recap, data threat analytics combines three really powerful threat detection engines. With threat monitoring, you can continuously scan for known threats to detect compromise before the damage is done. With anomaly detection, you can detect file system anomalies to identify data destruction and the blast radius of an attack. And with threat hunting, incident responders can hunt for indicators of compromise throughout the time series of data. So today we focused on data threat analytics, and this is part of a larger data security platform that we offer that includes data protection, data security posture, and cyber recovery as well. With all of these components, you can keep your data safe and make it easy to recover from cyber incidents. I did also want to mention that being cyber resilient is about more than just having the right technology in place. Rubrik also offers a ransomware recovery warranty that guarantees that your data will be available for recovery in case of an incident. We will pay out up to $10 million in recovery-related expenses if that is not the case. And so far, we've never had to pay out. Included with Rubrik support at no extra cost is our ransomware response team, which is a team of experts that's there to guide you during the high-stress moments after a cyber incident. And they've performed many successful recoveries. And like I've mentioned, Rubrik Zero Labs is our research group that delivers vendor-agnostic insights on reducing data security risks. And I encourage everyone to check out the latest report from Rubrik Zero Labs. So the question we should all ask ourselves is, can we afford to wait during downtime? And how much is that going to cost in both financial and non-financial terms, such as the reputational damage that a cyber incident can cause? And so a quick example. Lang's Building Supplies is a Rubrik customer that was able to fend off a ransomware attack with hardly any interruption to business as usual. They ended up without having to pay any ransom, had zero data loss because they had Rubrik's data security solution in place. Now that's cyber resilience. So thank you all for tuning into this webinar. I hope you found it helpful. And in closing, really briefly, the most important asset for an organization is your data. And you can have really great cybersecurity controls at the application, network, endpoint, etc. levels. But if an attacker does manage to get in and deny you access to your data, are you going to be able to recover within an acceptable time frame? Do you know exactly what was impacted? Can you be confident that your environment is free from known threats? Do you know what exact point in time you need to recover to minimize data loss and avoid reinfection? In today's day and age, you need to have good answers to all of those questions. And that's where data threat analytics applied to your existing backup data can really help. So thank you all again for your interest. And if you'd like to learn more, please get in touch.
Thank you very much, Vera. What a great presentation, a great way to wrap up the MegaCast. Now, I know there's lots more questions to get to, and I wish we had the time to stop, but here's how you're going to get answers. You are going to click on the wish list on your screen right now. You're going to let Rubrik know, do you need a data sheet? Do you need a white paper? Do you want to get that personalized demo? What is the conversation that would be helpful for you in terms of following up on what we just chatted about with Veer? So click on your screen there. Also, make sure you visit the handouts tab. You can click on the link. Oh my goodness. I feel like I have Friday brain and it's only Wednesday. You can click on the link there and that'll take you on over to the Rubrik website. Now the Rubrik site is absolutely full of resources, really cool takeaways, lots of videos you can watch, lots of blog posts to read and white papers you can download. So all kinds of things that are going to very much help you. Some of the questions that were coming in around this idea of how do we sort through all of the many solutions that are out there? How do we know which solutions, which platforms are going to be right for us? And a great place to start is just with a little bit of base research, right? Spend some time getting to know the Rubrik website, getting to know their offerings, start there, and then reach out and follow up with the Rubrik team. Now, another way to do that, of course, click on the screen there and ask for that kind of personalized chat. While you're doing all of that, I will give away a prize. We have another $300 Amazon gift card, plus we have 2 Microsoft Surface Pros that we're going to give away. So I'll remind you again that you do need to be here live and present at the webinar. All right, our next winner of a $300 Amazon gift card is, oh, here's a regular, Justin Gunderson from Wisconsin. Hey, Justin, you won it. Justin, you are getting a $300 Amazon gift card from, again, Justin Gunderson from Wisconsin. We will follow up with you about that. And our 2 winners here looking for a Surface Pro from Microsoft, and that is Tim Matias from Pennsylvania, and Bridget Fitzgerald from Minnesota. Good day for the Midwesterners today. Bridget Fitzgerald from Minnesota. All right, well, congratulations. I'm going to read all of our winners one more time. That's Tally Smith from Washington, got a $300 Amazon gift card. On Microsoft Surface Pro going to Wade Munschow from Wisconsin, a $300 Amazon gift card going to Justin Gunderson from Wisconsin, and a Microsoft Surface Pro going to Tim Matias from Pennsylvania, as well as Bridget Fitzgerald from Minnesota. That is one heck of a haul we've got going out to all of you today. And don't forget, we have that best question gift card coming at you from each one of our sessions. So if you asked a question today, even if we didn't get you in a live Q&A, you are entered to win. And boy, team, I got to tell you, the questions coming in today were awesome. You are all drinking your coffee. I know Paul started his day with, what was it? Orange juice, coffee, and a grilled cheese sandwich. So maybe that's the brain food for the day today, Paul. You'll have to let us know if you feel alive, awake, and alert and enthusiastic as the day continues. All right, well, my friends, we are going to wrap things up there. I do want to remind you all that if you are here on the MegaCast thinking that this has been a good time, maybe you'd like to join in the fun a little more, we would absolutely love that. So if you would like to present on a summit, an EcoCast, a MegaCast, a webinar, whatever you've got in mind, we definitely want to hear from you. Please do reach out to us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. All right. Well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again thank our incredible speakers here with us today from Veeam and from Rubrik for making this MegaCast possible. But of course, my biggest thank you is to all of you, not just because you showed up today, not just because you showed up and told me what you had for breakfast, although I always love hearing that. And not just because you were with us for our good times and slide advancing fun with Ricatron, but because all of you today really brought the engagement with your questions. You were interacting with the information, interacting with each other, and I love seeing that. That is absolutely the best part of these MegaCasts. And not only that, when we were talking at the start about how fast things are moving these days and how fast things are changing for the good guys and the bad guys, these conversations, these interactive conversations that really help us stay in the race, stay at the head of the pack. This is what is going to help us. You know, I saw a question the other day. Somebody was asking about, hey, if the bad guys have access to all the same tools as the good guys, how could we ever stay ahead? And to me, it's this community of learning. It's these conversations that help us stay ahead, that help us win that race. So I'm really glad that you were all here today. I hope that you will keep coming back to join us. And speaking of which, we have another MegaCast on Tuesday, May 14th. We're going to be chatting about data center to the cloud, optimizing and modernizing IT infrastructure. This is a very cool conversation, and you can see we have an all-star lineup of speakers coming to join us. So again, that's Tuesday, May 14th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And I hope that we'll get to see you there. I hope that you all have absolutely beautiful days and midway through the week, and I will see you on a webinar again soon. Thanks all.